When I was a kid, I was really into sports. Baseball, football, basketball for a little while. Boxing I never had any time for. It was just stupid and boring. All the legends were gone. Your Smoking Joe Frazier, George Foreman, Kenny Norton, Muhammad Ali, all those guys had retired. Boxing was dead. I had no time at all for that. So I didn't really follow it. Also, as a kid, I didn't have the luxury of cable television. But one of the few luxuries I did have, my mom got me a subscription to Sports Illustrated magazine. And I was into it, man. I mean, I'm cutting out pages of certain deals and putting them on my wall. And then you got the annual swimsuit issue, and it was awesome. Love that. Well, then this kid named Mike Tyson starts showing up. And I notice it in the Sports Illustrated. You know, first it's a little one-page thing, and they might have a picture of him. And then a couple months later, there'd be a 2 or 3 page thing and these pictures. And I'm like, who's this Mike Tyson guy? You know, I don't care nothing about boxing. This guy's just beef. You know, I'm like, he looks like a boxer. This could be interesting. So I start reading the articles. And it's growing and growing. Now he's got a full feature deal. He's going to be the youngest heavyweight champion in the history of boxing. And that got my attention. To fully understand the magnitude at that time that Tyson had on boxing, you kind of had to be there in a way. It was just unbelievable. This guy ran through the heavyweight division like it was knife through hot knife through butter. I mean, just demolishing guys, 2 rounds, 4 rounds, just knocking them out. None of this, what I thought was boring, measuring up and jabs and all that. He came in, and as his trainers called it, with bad intentions. And he just demolished the heavyweight division in very short order. So who was this Mike Tyson guy? They called him Kid Dynamite for a while. They called him Iron Mike. And then for a while, they called him the baddest man on the planet. Who was this guy? Where did he come from? Well, he came from the streets of New York. His mother was either a prostitute or a very promiscuous woman. My guess is both. And so the streets raised Mike Tyson. There was no dad in the home. He was raised by the streets. So he's breaking and entering. He's robbing people. As a kid, I'm talking about now. 10, 11 years, 12 years old, he's beating up kids' dads. I mean, he'd beat up a kid, and those that had dads would go get him and bring him back. What'd you do to my son and all this? Tyson would beat them up. He was a kid, a child, in a grown man's body. And he beat the dad up. I mean, it was just unbelievable. By age 13, he had been arrested 38 times. So finally, they sent him to a correctional facility, which is a fancy way of saying you're going to jail for kids. So he goes to this children's jail, basically. Mind you, he's got a grown man's body. And one of the guys that worked at this correctional facility was a former boxer. And he got his interest involved and said, you ever think about boxing? Maybe you could do this. So he's kind of showing him a little bit. And then a few months later, a guy named Cus D'Amato enters the picture. D'Amato his whole life was boxing. He was a trainer, and he had 2 heavyweight two champions, I'm not sure, of the weight divisions, but he had formerly in his life had 2 champions in boxing, and he wanted a third. He wanted a heavyweight champion, and he saw it in Tyson. This guy has all the tools. He has the speed, the agility, the quickness, the power. He can bring power from both hands. He can take a punch, and he starts mentoring Tyson. Eventually, he becomes his legal guardian. Mike Tyson goes and lives with Cus D'Amato, and they had a good plan. They had him fighting every month, which is remarkable for a boxer. But their theory was, if we keep him fighting every month, he'll have to be in training nonstop, and that'll keep him out of trouble. And for the most part, that worked. Tyson got up, I think 3 o'clock in the morning, and ran 4 or 5 miles, came back, ate, slept for a little bit, did this makeshift schooling in this correctional. It was just a token gesture, kind of. And then back to the gym, back for more training, sparring partners, the whole 9 yards. And this happened every day for years. From age 13 to about age 18, 19, that was his life. He watched films, he trained, and he fought nonstop. So by the time he turns professional, they've got the whole package now. Customato, by this time, is an old man, and he's facing the end. And he wanted his heavyweight champion before he dies. Tyson almost pulled it off, not because he lost, but because Customato died before Tyson could get the shot at the title. Well, Customato dies in November of 1985. I want to say it was by the summer of 86, maybe a little earlier than that, just a few months he missed it. Tyson became the heavyweight champion of the world, the youngest heavyweight champion ever in all of boxing history. 20 years and 4 months, I believe, was his age. And from there, he just dominated. He ran through the heavyweight division like nobody's business. Customato's stable of trainers, guys like Kevin Rooney. Early on, it was Teddy Atlas. Well, Teddy Atlas fell out of the picture. He's a legendary boxing trainer. Teddy Atlas checked out because of the things that were being done with Tyson. It had always been a very structured environment. If you weren't to the gym on time, you didn't get to box that day. You didn't get to train. If you won't be here 10 minutes on time, you won't do what it takes, the 10 minutes in the ring, that we got to have you for. Structure, discipline. You got to have these things. Exceptions were made for Tyson. Well, Kevin Rooney stayed on board, so there was still some semblance of discipline and structure, but Tyson was making a cakewalk of it. I didn't get to actually see these fights, but I'm following this in Sports Illustrated because it was a big deal. Tyson would make the covers. He'd have spread features. They brought up a big deal when he fought Michael Spinks. Now, Spinks is a boxer, and he's a seasoned veteran, and he knows the science, and maybe Tyson isn't. He might, he has to leave his feet sometimes. He's a little bit shorter guy. And in popular culture, kids in my school, everybody kind of mocked Tyson. A little high voice and all this, which it really wasn't that high, higher than you'd expect. But, he did have a little bit of a higher voice, and he had a speech impediment. He had a lisp. So it was an ongoing joke, and the joke stopped when the bell rang. Then things got rather serious rather quickly. So the structure now, the base, is kind of fallen by the wayside. Customato's gone. Teddy Atlas checked out pretty early. He was out of the picture. Still got Kevin Rooney, but things are falling apart. And people bash Tyson, had all the talent in the world, just threw it away. That's partially correct. He was his biggest enemy. But prior to that, the discipline and the structure and the training and the constant fighting, they had a plan, see. You come in with bad intentions all the time, all your focus, all your training. No girls, no messing around, no family, which Tyson didn't have one anyway. We're your family now. Focus, 100%. The trouble with that is they never showed him how to turn it off. So things are getting pretty loose. And like I said, people bash Tyson for that. You have to put yourself in those shoes. Imagine that you're 20 years old and now you're a multi-millionaire. In essence, you have your choice of women. You have your choice of cars. And it's available. You have your choice of drugs. All you have to do is show up in the ring and do your thing, and basically the world is at your feet. Well, with a lack of discipline, that can become a problem really quickly, and it became a problem for Tyson. Tyson's blowing through the heavyweight division. He's living it up. He's partying. He's wearing feather boas and whatever. I don't know what he's just out of control. He married Robin Gibbons. Gibbons. She was a TV actress from the time. She was a gold digger is what she was. That marriage, I think, lasted maybe a year, something like that, after she humiliated him in front of national television audience. She got, millions. Yeah, great. Way to go. That was his first defeat. Nobody seems to want to talk about that. Then, February 1990, he's got a tune-up fight that nobody in the States would even cover because there was no interest in it. So they had to go to Japan with a guy named Buster Douglas. It was just a tune-up, you know. It was just a space filler. It was a way to make some money. And everybody was, you know, how long is this going to last? Who is Buster Douglas? What? You know, the people that followed boxing knew who he was, but I was just, I don't know, 4 rounds. I don't know who Buster Douglas is. The pop star Bobby Brown, singer, dancer, cocaine addict, said in his book that he was partying with Mike Tyson the night before the fight, using cocaine, up all night, women, the whole shebang. And at some point, somebody said to Tyson, don't you think you should probably get some rest? You got a fight tomorrow. And Tyson laughs that the guy's an amateur. I could beat him with, 5 weeks of not sleeping. And then came the time of the fight the next day. And Tyson looked like a guy who'd been up all night partying. And you can watch all his fights. They're here on YouTube. The early Mike Tyson, the head movement, the feet movement, just an assault, a barrage. Dispatch your opponent as quickly as you can. All that stuff was gone. The fights before that only went a round or two. Some of them, occasionally he'd have a, 6-rounder or something, but he was looking for the one punch, the one knockout. Let's get this over with so I can go back to partying. Buster Douglas fought the fight of his life. His mother had died 3 weeks earlier. He had to use that for motivation. He told everybody, which all boxers say that, I'm going to shock the world. I'm going to shock the world. Buster Douglas did. Almost no one in Vegas would even put odds on the fight. I think there was one casino that did it at 42-1 odds. And Douglas won the fight. Yeah, there was a controversial long count. Go watch the fight. Buster Douglas beat him to a pulp. In this fight, all the structure, all the guys that had made Tyson, helped him along the way and knew boxing, they were all gone. Kevin Rooney was gone. They were so overconfident, they didn't even bring an inswell to the fight. This is a piece of steel, and you'll see it in any boxing match. They keep that thing just as frozen as they can, and then they apply it because it keeps swelling down. Well, throughout the course of the fight, they're giving Tyson advice like, you got to box, you got to work in there. Well, we know. I'm sure Tyson knew. But they don't even have an inswell. So they filled up a latex glove with ice water, and they're holding that over his thing. At one point, the Aaron Soul guy, who's the new trainer, he's got a lanyard around his neck, and he's in there whispering sweet nothings to Tyson, because I don't even know. Well, his lanyard pokes Tyson in the eye that isn't closing from the beating from Buster. I mean, it was just a train wreck. Those guys didn't know what they were doing. All the structure was gone. And it cost Tyson. And the invincibility was gone then. As was Tyson's career. From that point on, it was never the same. He blew some guys out after that. By 1992, he had been convicted of rape and was sentenced to 6 years in prison. Now, he did about, I think, 3 years or close to 3 years, and they let him out. And now, that rehabilitation went well. No, it did not. The old Tyson was basically never seen again. The hunger, the desire, the training, everything became way lax. And I'll do it tomorrow. Yeah, I'll get on it. He still had the power. And he still had the ability to take a guy out with one punch. As almost all great boxers do, the last thing to go is their power. And it became, for a guy like me, that was just a kind of a casual fan, but I was following Tyson. It was sad to watch him in the ring. It just was obvious that he didn't want to be there anymore. And by the end of his career, he said, I have no business in it. I'm fighting because I have bills to pay. And that's sad to see. The overconfidence, the arrogance. I mean, he could have had a reign quite possibly comparable to Muhammad Ali's reign, minus the greats as opponents, but it is possible. And instead, it was drugs and partying and this lifestyle that's just off the rails. Then you have a prison sentence in there. That took 3 years. It was sad to see. But they never showed him how to turn that off. when your whole world, your whole focus is boxing and fighting? How do you live as a man? He had no structure. He had no family life. He had no upbringing. He knew nothing about any of that stuff. He knew nothing about money management or paying your taxes or how to invest or even just to save and hold on to what you have. It was just, let's get some Bengal tigers, man. This will be cool. Let's get some cocaine. That's the road to ruin. And Tyson got on it. And multiple points he's failed. At this point in time, at least to the casual observer, it seems like Mike has gotten his life together, gotten out of the tax debt, hopefully staying off the hard drugs, and you know, kind of, it's somewhat of a success story now. It's a turnaround. But all that potential, man, and to be the youngest heavyweight champion ever, and then to just take it for granted, it was something to see. I thank you for watching. I do appreciate your time, and I'll see you next time.